back to Seaside Garage. If you watched my celebration of 25,000 subscriber video, you will already know what this is. But if you didn't, then this is the newest addition to my fleet. It's a Renault 25 V6 Turbo from 1987, which is my birth year. So that's special already there. And this was, as it very often is the case for me, not planned. Well, it just suddenly came up on my Facebook Marketplace. For me, this car is pretty special, and it's actually blowing my mind a little bit driving it. I really enjoy this car. So yeah, in the previous video about this car, I drove it home. In this video, I won't drive it, but I'm going to take the first real look at it because I bought it pretty much unseen. The only pictures in the ad was from a magazine where this car was featured, but those pictures were from 2018. So it was really a gamble to go ahead and pick it up. So all I know about this car is the exterior and how it drove home, which was pretty nice. There is issues with this car, but way less than I was expecting. But there's also a quite interesting story about this car that I would like to share with you guys. Some might think it's a bit boring. I think it's very interesting. And then we're going to take a look at the car once again. And then I'm going to put it on the lift it up and look at the underneath, because I have no idea how rotten this car is. I really hope it's not very bad, but you never know. But the thing is, the Renault 25 were never sold in Denmark. They were way too expensive. We have a lot of taxes on cars in Denmark, so it's more popular to get a really small engine car and not a car like this. So this one was sold from new in Monaco. And that's the first bit that is quite cool, because this little thing shows the first couple of services in Monaco. Place du Crédit Lyonnais, Monte Carlo. And the stamps right here is Renault in the middle. And then it's Maserati and Lamborghini. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I think stuff like this is pretty cool. But that was the first service back in '87 when this car was new. 9,000 kilometers already. And also the 20,000 kilometers at the same garage, also in '87. 30,000 kilometers in '88. And then nothing more. And it's quite surprising to see how many kilometers it actually drove for the first 2 years, because this car, 37 years later, this car got 148,000 kilometers on the clock. So I guess that this car probably changed hands in Monaco around 88 or 89 or something like that, and then wasn't driven very much. The story I was told, and there's really no way of confirming it, close to the millennium, the man who owned this car apparently died, or so I'm told, and the widow drove this car to Denmark because she came from Denmark, and she probably just wanted to get back to her own country when her husband died. And then when she reached the Danish border, the car was impounded. And I gotta say, that is weird, because nowadays, if you drive a car really fast in Denmark, or if you're very drunk while driving, the car will be impounded. For instance, if you drive 100 kilometers in a city zone, the car will be impounded, no matter what car you drive, even if the car is not yours. If I, for instance, lent this car to someone and they drove 101 kilometers per hour in a city zone, then the car will be impounded, even though I wasn't the one driving it. It's pretty crazy. I think it's like that in many countries now. But back in 2000, they wouldn't just impound it for stuff like that. I just don't know why they took it. Maybe she wasn't legally the owner of the car. I just have no idea. Maybe she didn't have a license. I have no idea why it was impounded. But there is a paper trail quite thick about that, where the car was then probably sold at auction. I'm not sure about that. In Denmark, when you have a car where the paperwork is lost, what you can do is to apply the authorities to actually get new papers. To do that, you will have to prove somehow that you are the owner. If it's a Danish car and they still got the documents in their system, they will contact the owner on the paper to ask if it's right that the new owner is now the owner. if they can't find any kind of trace, what they will probably do is to give you the permission to go to a MOT and pay a new tax on the car, which can sometimes be quite a lot. But if you can prove that the car is Danish, you can actually get new papers. But someone applied for papers on this car, and to do that, because it was never Danish, the local police station in the Danish area, Præstø, contacted Interpol in Monaco and got a letter stating that this car was taken out of the country legally and wasn't stolen or anything. And they gave the permission to import this to the Danish system. But this letter is signed by a ball pen by Birthe Rønn Hornbæk, back then the vice police chief in Denmark. Later she became a politician and minister of integration and church, I think, for many years actually. She's quite a big person in Danish politics. So that's a pretty fun document to have. But the permission were given, but this was back in 2003, and for some reason the tax was paid in 2009, I think it is. Yeah. And the car wasn't really driven. The story I was told was that the owner of the car's son was supposed to drive it, but he couldn't really handle it because it is a pretty powerful car. So the plates were taken off again. And then in 2017, I think the guy that I bought it from, Peter, bought it and owned it until last week, where I bought it. Peter, by the way, wrote an article about the car, which is right here. By the way, these pictures were the pictures that I saw on the ad, and it's looking pretty fine. It's still looking pretty fine, so it wasn't way off. But it was a bit scary to rely on pictures that old for a car. It's from 2018, by the way. Yeah, but the reality is that the car didn't really drive much before Peter got it. At the MOT in 2017, where he bought it, it had covered 124,000 kilometers, and now it's 148. So this is a quite impressive low miler example of a Renault 25 V6 Turbo. Anyway, enough about the paperwork. I want to give a quick tour of the car, and then I want to put it on the lift and take a look at the underneath, because that is always a little bit scary. This car needs to go through an MOT next year, so I do have a lot of time to fix whatever needs fixing. To be honest, I don't think it's a lot, unless it's very rotten, but of course there is stuff that needs to be looked at. But firstly, the exterior of the car is in pretty nice condition. There is dings and scrapes, and this, I was told by Peter, is from Monaco. Scratches from Monaco, how cool can it be? But overall it's in very decent condition. The worst part of it is actually the bonnet. For some reason the clear coat has lifted off and flaked off. I'm not sure what to do about this, if I can just sand it down and apply some new clear coat, or if I have to pay the entire bonnet, I'm not sure. But that's pretty much the worst of the bodywork on this car, which is quite impressive considering what I normally work on. I don't even have a rusty hole in the roof, but there is dents and stuff like that. I actually saw quite a lot of small dents in the roof, which I think is probably hail. It's difficult to pick up on, but there is a lot of small dings. By the way, I really like this. Normally you have a gutter line somewhere around here to where the car is assembled, and you can also attach the roof rack to and all that. This one just have this nice flowing edge, which I like quite a lot. And also the rear window it's a nice shape. Rust wise on the exterior, all I have seen is this right there. Some minor rust on the edge of the boot, and that's about it. Check these arches out. It's really impressive to see a car in Denmark from '87 unrestored in this condition. Of course it is because it hasn't been in the country for long, and probably has been taken care of. Peter told me that it was not driving in the winter. It stood outside last winter, and that was, he told me, the reason why the lacquer started to peel off. But this car is in really nice condition on the outside. Stuff that annoys me about this, because it's looking pretty pretty, is yeah, discoloring of the plastic, for instance. Also discoloring of this plastic paint on this, and especially back here, it's quite annoying. By the way, I really like the rear end of this car. It's nice, and the locks are also really nicely made. And then there is the interior of this thing. It's just amazing. If you know my channel, you will know the XM that I have worked on, and they share a lot of feel and design language, I think, with the way that the seats are adjusted, for instance, and the instrument cluster setup, and yeah, the overall feel. It's very nice in here. It's really a luxury feel, and everything is in nice condition. I'm just gonna light up the show a little bit for you guys. But keep in mind, we are talking 87 in this interior. So of course it's old school, but from 87 to have a radio like this, for instance, not only do you have a tape, oh nice, but you can adjust the balance between the speakers, the front to rear. I'm not even sure what this is. The problem is that everything is pretty much in French on this. But ambient, I'm not sure what that does. Physio, I don't know what that does, but it has a lot of settings. And also you have to know a little bit about sound, because if your kiddo did something to these, it could be difficult to find the correct balance, because there's not really a reset to factory spec or anything on those. And then there's a metal button. It will probably just start playing Manowar straight away if you push this. Anyway, this is a pretty nice stereo. Currently I have this modern thingy that makes it into a Bluetooth device by making its own radio channel, and honestly it's playing pretty nicely. The speakers, there's some here, there's one there, and there's some in the rear also. And I'm pretty sure that these small things are also speakers, but I'm also pretty sure that it's not original. But it's playing really nicely. And the next thing that is a bit, remember it's 87, but you can actually change the volume and the channels and all that back here. It's totally normal on new cars, but in 87 this was pretty cool. And then when the radio is on, woo! But anyway, that was a free ad. You get to see the megahertz on the radio channel up there, and you have the temperature there, and stereo there, and what I'm pretty sure is going to be the clock, but it's not working, or the numbers are just not readable. But up here you can change stuff, volume and selection, and there's a lot of, and this was pretty damn cool back in the days. Anyway, quite surprisingly for a luxury car bought in Monaco, this does not have air condition. So it's just a pretty basic blower setup, but it's actually working pretty decent. I like these air vents up here. They deliver quite a bit of air. And the feel of these are also pretty nice. And everything works, which is also surprising. Oh, another thing I might mention is the glove compartment over here. It's weighted, it's plastic, very plasticky, very French 80s plastic, but it's weighted. I think a lot of thought has been going into having some kind of counterweight on this. It just feels really nice, I gotta say, even though the materials are maybe not that cool. That nice. And in the doors you have the window mechanism, and of course an ashtray. It's a French car after all. A little compartment under there, nice leather on the armrest, leather up here, and it is very nice, this interior. And then there is the party piece. This car got a onboard synthesized voice for telling you errors. You can test it by pressing this.
Les fonctions sous contrôle ne présentent pas de défaut.
And it does that. Apparently that means that the system is not picking up any errors. But you can press this and it will repeat the error message, and if there's no error message, it will say that. And it's actually picking up on quite a lot of things. For instance, if you don't shut the door right, it will tell you, and it will tell you which door it is. It will tell you if the bonnet is not closed right and the boot is not closed right. And it will also tell you if you're running out of fuel, and it will tell you if it's having low oil pressure and all that. It's very quirky, especially since it's French, and it's only French, and yeah, there's nothing, and I don't understand a thing of it. As you can see on the interior, you don't have any fuel gauge either, but it is there on the digital dash up there, 24 liters. It will go for 227 kilometers before I need to fill up. And on this button over here, I can change and see the average speed on the latest trip, the average fuel consumption on the latest trip, and live fuel consumption, and the last trip, 120 kilometers. Quite impressive that I have had an average speed of 35 kilometers. I'm thinking I'm taking it a bit too slow. And also 10.6. It's not brilliant, but keep in mind this is a V6 engine with a turbo. So yeah, it's really, really nice interior for a 87 car. I love the steering wheel, by the way. I got one issue already. The service light is on. The light down there is on. It's an ABS error. I was told that it came and went from time to time, and yeah, it came the day after I picked it up, and it has been there ever since. So that's something that I, of course, would like to fix. Oh, yeah, by the way, this is also adjustable side mirrors. I presume that it's missing the top of the button, but still, it works. And that's another thing that is surprising about this car. It's French. It got a lot of features, but they actually work. I can switch to this side mirror, and then it just works. And I can switch to the other one, and the motor over there is very noisy. But still, it works. Let's go ahead and take a look at that engine. And underneath this hood is the 2.5 liter PRV engine, V6, 90 degrees, V6 turbo engine. This got a lot of bad reputation, this engine. And I cannot really say if that is deserved or not, because I haven't got a huge amount of experience in these engines. I worked on the 3-liter engine on in the XM, and now this one. And I gotta say, I think they are running really nice, these engines. But they do have some weird features that could probably give them some problem. And I know that they had some issues with the early ones, with the camshaft gear wearing out, and also with the liners sinking, I think. Or maybe it was just I think it was the seal between the liner and the block that perished if you forgot to change the coolant regularly. And then it rusted away, and then you got engine oil or coolant in the engine, and vice versa. Sometimes those rumors are just blown out of scale. I don't know if it's the case, but so far so good. The engine is running really nice on this one. It's pulling really, really strong. That turbo is kicking like crazy. It feels really fast. It's 180 horsepower. Later models, the Phase 2 was 205. I do not know what the difference is. I'm trying to figure that out, because it could be fun to get this to 205 also. But it's plenty fast. It's really pulling strongly. I have two problems though. One is sometimes it won't start. It happened twice now. It happened when I went to pick it up, and it happened 4 days later. It just wouldn't start. It turns out that when it happens, it's because of no spark. Both times I have just disconnected all connectors and plugged them back in, and then it fired up. But it turns out that this up here is a Cobra alarm system. And as you can see, there is a key right there. I don't really know what that unit does and when you need the key. And yeah, I don't know, but the wires go into this and goes into the ignition system. So I have a feeling that it's an immobilizer problem, or maybe it's not even a problem. Maybe it's actually doing what it's supposed to do. I just don't know how to disable it when it actually happens. I'm going to try to turn the key one time if it does it again, but let's just see. The other issue I'm having, which is quite interesting considering this car is supposed to tell you what the problem is, but it's currently saying no error codes. But as you can see, this is clamping off the hose to the auxiliary air supply, I think, or the idle control valve. That is not working. Peter told me that they changed this one, but the problem was still the same. It could be a signal issue. It could be many things. I don't know. But if I take this one off, the idle will be around 2,500 RPMs, which is a lot in a V engine, and at idle in any case. So that would be really nice to fix, because the other issue that I'm having is when I coast in gear, the car will do a quite violent jerking motion unless I just give it a little bit of throttle. So the engine braking is really annoying in this car, and I think it's down to this problem, because it's probably supposed to cut off fuel when you coast in gear. I don't know if it's that modern, this injection system, but if it's just squirting a little bit of fuel because the system is confused by this, then it will probably make those small kicks. It could also be a very bad engine mount, but I don't know, but that's really annoying, and I think I would really like to fix. But other than that, the engine is running really nice. Let's take a look underneath this car, because that is where the scary bits most of the times are located on cars in my country. There's some kind of oil leak at least. That's the first thing I spot. What a gigantic oil pan, but still very thin. It's a tall engine. It's a bit of an oil leak, but it's not that bad though. Oh, there's an engine mount. It's a hydraulic engine mount, so maybe that rocking could actually be coming from engine mounts. On the other hand, this one really looks pristine, so I doubt there is an issue with that. And also I would notice other drivability issues, I think, if it was the engine mounts. But wow, this is looking really decent in here. I'm used to way more rust. It's in pretty good condition. The brake discs are a little bit worn, but it's not bad. The components looks to be in really decent condition. What about the other side? It's the same. Oh, it looks really nice. Maybe there's a bit of rust up there. Maybe there could be a little spot up there of bother. Nothing too bad. But the subframe looks perfect. Completely perfect. Oh, this looks to be in really nice condition. Wow. Yeah, I have an exhaust leak. I can hear that when driving. I was also told that. And it could look like this exhaust is put together by many small pieces, which could be down to the fact that this car is rare. I don't think you can just go ahead and buy an exhaust system for this easily. So yeah, I just have to find the leak. But the condition of the inner panels is just, wow, it's in good condition. Huh. I see absolutely no problems at all anywhere. One thing is for sure, I'm not going to drive this car in the winter, because that would be a shame, having it this nice. What a complicated rear setup. It also almost looks like the Mercedes rear axle, but there is no axle back here, and not a driving axle at least. But the setup is, wow, take a look at those springs. really big springs, but not a lot of windings. But again, the condition is amazing. The condition back here is completely amazing. Seriously, if I was just underneath this car, not knowing what it was, I would guess that this was maybe 5 years old in my country. This is unbelievably nice condition. This is really amazing. Oh yeah, the owner told me that the exhaust leak was in an area where the exhaust goes through the subframe. I was a bit puzzled about that, but that's probably up there. So that could look to be a little bit annoying to fix, I mean. It's probably the soddy area over there that is the problem area. It needs to be fixed because it's annoying. And maybe it's just there. It looks black, at least. It could actually be the connection that is at fault. Oh, that's not a big deal. Wow, I'm lucky with this car. This is probably the best car that I have ever owned. Talking about rust condition, this is original condition from '87, and I have nothing that looks this nice. That is unrestored. That is for sure. This is completely amazing. The ride quality in this car is really assuring. It feels planted, and while being a heavy car, it feels really controllable and not flimsy. And this is probably the reason it looks to be a pretty complicated rear end setup with the struts and the thingies. What is this? I wonder what that is. It almost looks like some kind of adjustment, ride height adjustment system. Oh, it's the brake bias valve, of course. So that alters the brake force applied to the rear axle when weight is applied or removed. So it's up there, the valve. Also a very French looking spring on the front. Going in like this is just recipe for disaster, because if this one snaps, it will just go into your tire straight away because it has nothing to catch it. It's not a brilliant design in my opinion, but it's very French. And again, look at the suspension setup on this car. It's got a lot of different control arms and stuff. It's really complicated. Okay, so this car is probably up there with the best buys that I have ever done. I'm not sure it's worth all that much. As mentioned, I paid 20,000 Danish kroner for this. I expect it to be worth quite a bit more when it got a fresh MOT and all the small stuff is fixed. Who knows if I'm gonna sell it? I probably will, because I will have to. But I really don't have any bone in my body that wants to sell this at the moment, because it's an awesome car. It's really fun. I have no idea what to use it for other than having fun, and probably I will soon take it off the road, because when the winter really arrives, which it will do pretty soon, I won't drive around in this car. It's just, the condition is just too good, and I don't think there are as many of these left in the world. Normally I will say in Denmark, but in Denmark I know about one more V6 Turbo in Denmark, but probably more than that. But in this condition, it's gotta be a really, really rare beast, and it's even a low miler. So, thank you for watching. Don't forget you can support me on Patreon. That way I will buy even more of these kinds of things. The next video on this one will be a proper test drive. Now that I know the car a bit better, I've owned it for 1 week. I would like to give you guys an impression of how it's like to drive it, and all the weird gimmicks on the interior, the voice and all that, and that punch when the turbo kicks. It's really nice. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.